Dr Dain Heer, how are you?
I'm phenomenal. How about you?
Excellent. I'm doing fantastic. Had a pretty long drive today, but I'm excited to be here with you. I've heard you've had a pretty awesome day.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal.
Yep. So what did you have today? What events were on?
Today's a class called the Symphony of Possibilities. It's a bit of an advanced class in that it has, things you need to take before you get there, but it's about, the tagline of the class is changing the world by your very touch. And it's just friggin' awesome.
Yeah, it sounds friggin' awesome.
It's fun. It's really fun.
So you've got other things as well that come into this, and that's called access consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is just one element of that.
Yeah, we have a lot of things. We've got over 10,000 facilitators around the world. We're in 176 countries. I've heard a lot of people, talk about whatever they have in their modality or whatever it is. And I don't say it like most people, are sort of trying to prove they've got something going on. I just say it because it's just friggin' awesome. To have this many people who are taking this, something that I contributed to, starting 20 years ago now, and are taking it into the world and using it to create change, create more ease for people, more fun.
Yeah, making transformations in their own lives and then affecting the others around them.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Amazing. What are you most excited about in life right now?
How long do you have? I feel like a big 6-year-old, I feel like a 6-year-old with credit cards. It's like I'm excited about the possibilities that I see. And I say that not from I keep qualifying when I say things, but it's because so many people say things from a particular place and everybody goes, oh yeah, that. I usually don't mean what other people are talking about. For me, what I'm excited about is I see people truly having the awareness that it's possible to change some of the most fundamental shit we've been living with and take it from shit to possibilities.
Yeah. Wow.
I can say shit, right? We're on the internet.
Yeah, you can.
Not like, not on the radio.
It's not PG
not
rated.
Not going to get in trouble. Okay, good.
It just has the explicit tick. That's okay.
Okay, good. Yeah. We've just ticked explicit. Because I said shit. Shit is explicit?
Yeah. No. I think we pass.
Okay. Well, okay.
That'll be
We'll
fun.
give that a pass.
We'll see how deep we go into
all right,
this.
Deal.
How loose this podcast gets. How many beers flow. So I know only so much about you. I did a little bit of research because as I do, I need to know who you are. And straight away when I seen Access Consciousness, I was like, the Conscious Podcast, Access Consciousness, we're aligning here. This is going to be awesome. And as I was saying before we started, was I checked you out on YouTube and I seen Mind Valley, love what Mind Valley is doing. So started watching, and then I got to 5 minutes and I was like, I need to stop. Like I need to sit here and talk to you and find out more about you. And for myself and the listeners that don't know too much about you, can you give us a wrap up of your life from start to where you are now and everything that you're doing?
Whew.
And this is like the keynote.
This is the
story.
the keynote story.
Otherwise, I know we could go on for hours.
True story. Unfortunately, I like to talk a lot, as I've already stated. So for me, it's like, as a little kid even, I was a seeker. I was always looking for like, okay, how do we do this better, And I was studying, I did books on like healing modalities and stuff and would work on my family and it was, and they were like, oh yeah, I'll let you work on me, you're a little kid. But I was always sort of that kind of person. I was always looking for what else is possible. Was my fundamental point of view. And I got to a place after becoming a chiropractor, because I became a chiropractor because I wanted to create miracles in people's lives, and I didn't see it happening. And not that that's not available in that venue, I just wasn't able to make it happen. I got to a place about 20 years ago now where I was like, you know what? I'm done being unhappy, because I had woken up unhappy for the better part of 3 years. And I was like, and I was doing all these techniques to try to just basically get happy in my life, have a sense of peace and ease. It wasn't happening. And finally, after a weekend workshop, because I had done several, where I thought I had found the answer, I woke up on Wednesday and it felt like the universe was burying me again. And I went, you know what? This is it. Universe, either my life changes or I'm killing myself. I don't care which it is. And I literally said, you've got 6 months. And I saw an ad for this thing called Access Consciousness a week later. I totally resisted it. I saw it a week after that, resisted it, and then realized whether you love it or hate it, there's something there for you. So I called the girl who put the ad in the paper, and it said, Access, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. and it said, call Shannon. And I was like, kill Shannon. And because I was like, dude, no ease, joy, and glory. My life is pain, suffering, and glory. What are you talking about, right? And I called her, and she just had this wonderful energy. She was just like, hi, you know? And I was like, hi, you know, I was so stressed about everything. And she said, and I said, what are you going to do? She said, well, we should probably start with this thing called Access Consciousness bars. It's 32 points on the head. You just get them touched really lightly. I'll just put my hands on your head in different places. At the worst, you feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life will change. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, my whole life better change or I'm killing myself. What do I have to lose? I had this session. This girl I've never met puts her hands on my head, and there's this energy that flows through my body. And I was like, whoa, because it felt like liquid light, love, peace. In a sense, everything was okay. And it started from moment one, and then it kept progressing as we go through this session that lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. And I just kept giggling like a little kid. I was like, I can't imagine what she was thinking, you know, while she's working on me. But I went into that session literally depressed and suicidal. I left it grateful to be alive and thinking, if it feels like this way to be alive, I'm in. It had truly changed my life. It had truly stopped me from killing myself. And, you know, I'm not saying that's what happens for everybody who experiences it, but we have 10,000 facilitators around the world that are doing it, contributing some level of this change to people. It's just friggin' awesome.
That's incredible. And right now, what are you running? What's your day-to-day now?
Oh, dear Lord. Running is the word. So I started working with the founder of Access 19 or almost 20 years ago when I had that first session. And we just started getting together. I'd work on him, he'd work on me. Within a few days, it became apparent we had this chemistry, this click together where it was like we could go further with everything we talked about than either one of us could alone. And so I started contributing to Access. And now at this point, like I said, we've got people in 176 countries around the world. We've got thousands of facilitators of this work. We have the bars that I talked about. You know, we have thousands of people doing that, teaching classes in that. We have, I mean, if you go to the website, you get lost in it because there's so much. Because we work on pretty much everything, because consciousness includes everything, judges nothing. And so we have stuff on money. We have stuff on finding your voice. We have stuff on getting over depression, getting over grief, and then also exploring sort of the furthest reaches of what is possible energetically that we can choose, that we can create. Because we're all energetic beings. It's just when people say that, it has such a significance to it. What it really means is, look, easy for me to say, energy is our first language. Yeah. And what that means is everything that occurs for us has an energy to it, but it's got nuances to it that we can use to see what's really going on, and also how to actually navigate through the things that don't work. But it's got a ton of tools. Yeah. We've got over 8,000 tools to change specific things that can be so helpful for people.
Yeah, it sounds incredible, and like we could have several podcasts on this topic. So what I'm intrigued to know is, what is consciousness to you?
Well, for me, consciousness is where everything and everyone exists, and no one and nothing is judged. And what that allows, by extension, is every possibility that exists. Because it's our judgments, it's what we decide is right or wrong, good or bad, what we can have, what we can't, that create our reality. You know, and the way I say it is, your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. If you can get over your point of view about how reality is supposed to be, how magical could it be that you don't even know yet?
So why do you think that right now some people can't get over that point of view? Is it they haven't tapped into that consciousness, or is it society? Is it marketing? Is it the news? Is it what do you think that is?
All of that.
Yeah.
I really do. And my sense is we've just never been taught that it's possible and it's actually the way things work. You know, we've got this really sort of skewed idea of what is going to make us happy, and most of that has nothing to do with us. It's what we're taught from the time we're little kids that was supposed to make other people happy, but it didn't make them happy, but we're supposed to somehow do it better and get happy as a result. Are you friggin' kidding me?
So true.
Where do we buy this crap? You know what I mean? And so we haven't been given some really fundamental tools.
Mm-hmm.
And from my point of view, one of those fundamental tools is what's true for you will always make you lighter. A lie for you always makes you heavier. And so what I see is people trying to live things that are not true for them, trying to make entire lives out of what's not true for them. And it's never light, but they think they're wrong somehow because it feels so wonky and so off, rather than realizing maybe what I'm going for, maybe it's not wrong, but maybe it's just not for me.
Yeah.
You know, and if we apply that to, you know, we could apply it to relationships. We could apply it to stuff with our family. We apply it to stuff with the future we want to create. And we don't have some of the basic tools that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah. I think that for me, I taught this with my mentor program just this last week, was that, you know, when you try and force your values onto someone else, similarly, you're disappointed because you're like, you should be living this way because I believe it should be lived this way. And when someone puts their values onto you, they get disappointed and upset with you, and you get disappointed because you're not living in accordance to your values.
Yeah. And the other, so one of the things that we do in Access is we'll find something like that is a limitation. And then what we do is we find a way to change it. Mm-hmm. You know, because it's one thing to have a conversation about it where we go away going, yeah, that's true, or that should be true. But then you're still stuck in the same spot if you haven't changed the energetic underlying limitation and point of view about it. And so in that case, what we do is we go, okay, so all the projections, because the thing is, if you have a projection or an expectation of you or somebody else, if it doesn't match that projection or you don't match that projection or that expectation, you're going to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is you start going into judgment of you and them, and then you reject them or you reject you if it's about you, and then you do separation from them. So we combined all this into all the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections that we have. And then what we ask people to do is, will you destroy and uncreate it? Which is destroy it, meaning take that structure that builds a wall in front of you that you can't get around and destroy it. Make that choice, because our choice creates. This is another thing nobody tells us, which is really bizarre to me. So take and destroy and uncreate. So you destroy the structure, but you take your creative energy out of continuously rebuilding that wall and put it into creating your life. And then we have this other thing that we use called a clearing statement, which, you know, sounds like gobbledygook when people first hear it. But what it does is it's about going back to the point of creation of wherever you took that limited point of view. Because the consciousness that's all around us, it's like, I mean, even Einstein said every molecule has consciousness. And that concept has been furthered by a lot of people since. But if every molecule has consciousness, why are we functioning from so much unconsciousness in our lives? Because the only time you ever create a difficulty is when you function from unconsciousness or anti-consciousness, which is where you go against your knowing and the awareness that you have. Mm-hmm. And consciousness at a really fundamental level is awareness. And it's unabashed awareness, though. It's like you take the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you don't have a judgment of any of it.
Yeah.
And if we could start functioning from that rather than, well, this is good, so I'm going to believe it, and this is bad, so if I have this awareness, I must be judging. Because people have this weird idea that if they think something good about somebody, it's not a judgment. But if they think something bad, quote unquote, then it is a judgment.
Yep.
No, it's like, have you ever had somebody that you met and I don't know, somebody you were, you know, interested in, thinking about dating or something, and you think, oh my God, they're perfect? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had a hairball on that one. Really? I mean, you know, because, and then what happens when you find out who they really are? You're disappointed in them or you, and it doesn't go where you thought it was going to go. But those are projections, but they're also judgments that the person is perfect. None of us can live up to that.
Yeah.
And we think it's a good thing thinking somebody's perfect, but it's actually a positive judgment. And if you've also on the other side had an awareness of somebody who, say, was like selfish or something, and you go, oh, I'm not going to think that about them because that's bad. That's a judgment. I don't want to judge. What if it's not a judgment? What if it's an awareness? Yeah. And what if that awareness without judgment, knowing that somebody is selfish, just as one example, doesn't mean anything except now you know where they're actually functioning from. It's like if you see a rose, you don't go white rose good, red rose bad. You go, oh, white rose, red rose. Well, what if you went happy person, judgmental person, kind person, selfish person? They're just different colors of the rose. Mm-hmm. But what we do is we put a value judgment on it, and then we're not allowed to have that awareness. And then what happens is, let's say in the example of somebody we decide is perfect in a relationship, then they show us all the places they're not, of course. And then we're disappointed in them for not being what we thought they were. We're the ones who decided they were that. Mm-hmm. Why are we getting disappointed in them? Why aren't we looking at us and going, dude, you really screwed the pooch on that one. You know, you're the one who decided they were perfect. Nobody is. Let's not hold them to that standard. Let's see their strengths. Let's see their weaknesses. Let's see their gifts. Let's see their insanities. Let's not judge any of it so we can go into every situation in our lives with our eyes open.
Mm-hmm. And that's having that awareness to be conscious of all situations and things that happen, events, people, everything in our life.
Yeah. And that's why I say consciousness is where no one and nothing is judged, and everything and everyone is included.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you have so many modalities on how to awaken consciousness. What's one thing that's like a simple tip for people to gain more awareness in their own life, but then also in those other things, like you were saying, like those situations, those events that happen, that are inevitably are going to happen in life?
Oh, well, okay. So many of them are actually really simple, which is really cool. Most of what we do in Access, most of the tools are actually really simple. One of the things that can be really, really helpful is the awareness that 98% of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions don't actually belong to you. And you go, what? Like literally 98%. Because our idea in Access is you're an infinite being. Now, I used to hear this in some of the spiritual stuff I was doing before Access, and I would talk to them about my money problems, and they would go, but you're an infinite being, Dain. And I'd be like, yeah, shouldn't an infinite being be able to pay rent? You know, it's like, what? But the idea is an infinite being, rather than functioning from thoughts, feelings, and emotions, rather than functioning from thoughts, they would function from their knowing, which is faster and greater, knowing or thinking. Knowing, right? It's way faster, and you can know things you've never been taught. The idea about that then is that a lot of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions we think we have, which are the things that stick us, are not actually ours. We're like big psychic radio receivers. Like if you've ever hung around somebody who was sad and you start to feel sad, well, yeah, is that yours or theirs? Mm-hmm. Well, it's theirs, but we know that, right? And we go, geez, I need to get away from that sad person as a way of trying to handle it. But what if we extrapolate that and realize it's not just about the extremely sad person that we're picking this up from. We pick up thoughts, feelings, and emotions from everybody around us. And also, if you were with that sad person, if you didn't have to take that on, if you didn't have to make it yours, how much easier would it be to be around them? Mm-hmm. So we're in Melbourne right now. I mean, how many people around us are thinking, feeling, and having emotions about stuff? All of them. But what I've noticed is if you'll use this tool, if you'll ask, who does this belong to every thought, feeling, and emotion you have for 3 days. If the thought, feeling, or emotion, or you can use it for energetic stuff too, like where you think about something and your guts kind of get twisted, you know, or you I don't know, or walking down the street and you feel angry or something. You go, who does that belong to? If it lightens up at all, whatever that thing is, that anger, that sadness, that gut twisting, if it lightens up at all, it's not yours. You're picking it up from somebody around you. And then you go, okay, return to sender with consciousness attached. And then you go through your day lighter. Like I can walk through any city in the world with no thoughts in my head. I mean, I function most of my life from no thought. And people go, how do you function without thinking? I'm like, much better than I did when I was thinking. You know, and I know it can sound strange to people who haven't thought about it, but that's, if you look at it, that's pretty much the state that all the yogis and meditation masters of the world have tried to get us to. Yeah. But when I used to meditate, oh my goodness, I don't know if you meditate or have, but when I used to meditate, it was like I would have things go through my head like, oh my God, I got to go pick up the kids. And I'm like, I don't have kids. And I seriously was like, what is going on here? Before I had this awareness. And so when I would sit down to meditate, my mind would just go faster. And eventually I'd be able to quiet it. But what I found is in combination with access consciousness bars and receiving that, and also doing this thing of who does this belong to. And we actually have an app for it. It's a free app, okay? But it reminds you to ask who does this belong to many times a day if that's what you want. It'll do it on your schedule. But after doing this for 3 days, I was walking around, and the weirdest thing, there were no thoughts in my head. And then I hung out with some people that I used to like really go into my head around, and my head didn't start that whole worry head thing. And I was like, I think I may have killed the monkey mind. This is awesome. And so we see this, I've seen this with thousands of people who have actually done this. And it's one of the, it's not a typical way of looking at things. And I got to say, if access consciousness is anything, it is not typical. It's not the same old spiritual idea talking, because what's occurred is we've had spiritual modalities and disciplines for years, and spiritual people talking spiritual things. And now that consciousness is more of the buzzword, they're saying the same thing but calling it consciousness. Yeah. And the thing is, what we need to do is we need to get beyond the idea that our cup of tea, our modality, our thing is right and somebody else's is wrong. Mm-hmm. Because unfortunately a lot of spirituality, a lot of metaphysics, a lot of personal development has become sort of its own new religion, where you're supposed to kill the people in the other religion because they don't believe the same way you do. Yeah. Guys, consciousness is about oneness. Oneness includes all of us and judges none of us, and includes the greatness we all have to offer. So, I'll talk about access, and I'll talk about it really directly, but I don't think it's the answer. It's just got a lot of tools to give you the awareness that you actually have the capacity for. Mm-hmm. And if you add it to anything else, including psychology, including chiropractic, including massage, including healing, including, marriage, including sex, including working out, I mean, it just makes it greater. Mm-hmm. So it's not about the answer, it's about the question. Yeah. It's like, and really one of our other tools is asking a question. And, and what most people do is they function their life so much from conclusion. Something comes up and they go to the conclusion about what that means. Mm-hmm. And if they would instead go to question, like, for example, what else is possible here? Or when you're confronted with something where you feel like you're just crap, you go, hey, what's right about me I'm not getting? Yeah. And what's right about this situation I'm not getting? And another favorite, which is, how does it get any better than this? When something good happens, you ask, how does it get any better? It gets better. When something bad happens, you ask, how does it get any better than this? And it gets better. Mm-hmm. This thing about asking questions, if we would incorporate just some of these things in our lives, and it doesn't mean you have to come to an access class or watch all the videos, I have online or other facilitators have online, and you could, but it's more like embracing a possibility for a world and for number one, creating a life that actually works by being us, whatever that is. And by the way, talk about the last undiscovered frontier. It's like, what are we really, what are we really capable of? Mm-hmm. Which is, when you said what's exciting to me, I think that's probably the most exciting. Yeah. What are we really, and what are we really capable of? And what are we really capable of together? And what are we truly capable of if we ended the idea that we can't contribute to each other dynamically and receive from each other dynamically and contribute to the planet dynamically and the plants and the animals and the trees and each other dynamically? Let's end this shit about the separation we keep acting like it must be true because my body and your body won't occupy the same space. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, yeah, but consciousness exists in every molecule, which means the whole world around us is conscious and we're ignoring it. Mm-hmm. What if we let it in? What if we went, hey, consciousness, contribute. Hey, consciousness, will you help me, please? Hey, I'd like to be more conscious. Consciousness, help me become more conscious. And I know it can sound, it's like so many people try to make so much of what they do and how they live significant. But if we would end the significance, just that would start changing everything for the greater.
Mm. And I think when you were saying before about people trying to segregate it and the spiritual community having this is our way and this is consciousness and the conscious community, like I admit, like I was that person 2 years ago. I was like, if you're
Right.
not conscious, you're not my friend. And it's like, well, and then I was separating between unconscious and conscious. And if someone would piss me off, it'd be like, you're unconscious, so I'm not going to talk to you. It's like, you got to be in the zone. You got to be on that flavor. And I think for me, it was understanding like through compassion. It's like, no, we're all the same being in a different body, but that consciousness is important. And when we understand that, no religion or anything, we don't separate from that. And I think growing up in semi-religious background, growing up, it was like, if you don't do this, you're not living the right way.
Yeah.
And that goes on top of who I thought I was, my identity. And then growing up and experiencing different cultures and different people, I grew up in the country. I grew up with, my Italian background. They still do the same things they did back in the village 50 years ago. So then when I came to Melbourne and there was different cultures, there was different people, there was different religions, it was like, wow. Then I moved overseas and lived in Amsterdam for 2 years playing soccer. And it was like, people, like, they live differently. And who am I to judge that? Like, it's just, they're just doing what they do and all they know how to do.
Yeah.
And I think that those experiences then opened my mindset and I guess I had a fixed mindset at that time. Like, if it's not done this way, if I don't achieve this success, then my life is a failure. Yeah.
That. And I think that, and so many people seem to be trying to fight to prove the rightness of their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And the rightness of what they're choosing, or the rightness of what they're choosing now that they weren't choosing last week. And the thing is, one of the things that we found in Access is people always try to prove the opposite of what they believe they are. So the people that will fight hardest to prove that they're right are the ones who've already decided they're wrong.
Mm.
And see, that's one of the little things that we found by observing how people actually function. And working with, I guess millions of people around the world at this point, which is kind of cool. I'm like, whoa, that was eye-opening. But if we recognize that and we can have a sense of acknowledgement of what they're really doing, it gets a lot easier, because what sticks us is the lie that we buy. Yeah. And as my good friend Gary, the founder of Access, says, today's secret becomes tomorrow's lie. So when somebody does something that they think is wrong, that they then have to keep secret, then they have to tell lies about what they think about themselves and what they are. And we can all relate to that because we've all done it, and we're not supposed to, of course, but we've all done it. And if you can get to that place where we truly have the caring and the allowance for somebody who is going through something like that, and it's like, bro, I get it. I've been there. I've done it. I'm not judging you. It's like, I've done it too. It's okay. Then we have a different place from which to interact, but also a different place from which to contribute to each other. Mm-hmm. and see what's really going on for people. It's like that saying, you can't judge somebody until you've walked a mile in their shoes. It's so friggin' true. And I was in a class one time I was facilitating, and one of the things I love, because I like to be as irreverent as possible and make people laugh whenever possible, because laughter makes the medicine go down a lot better. You get a lot more change with laughter than tears in most cases. And so I was doing my thing, and for 3 days, this lady was sitting in the front row, did not crack a smile, did not smirk at all. I was looking at her, and it used to frustrate me when people were like that. I'm like, why are you here? It felt like she wasn't engaging at all, right? And I'm so glad I had this early on, because it made me highly aware. So at the lunch on the third day, she comes over to me with a friend of hers, and I'm like, what is she doing? And she comes over, and she has tears in her eyes, and she says in broken English, I'm sorry, I don't speak English. My friend translate for me. And I was like, okay. And through her friend, she said, I want to say thank you so much. This has been the most transformative 3 days of my life. And I can't even understand most of what you say. And this was before we had translators in almost all of our classes, which we do now. And it just broke the thing in me that made me think that the look on somebody's face or the whether they seemed to be responding or not had anything to do with what was actually going on. And I also have to admit, I was like, Dain, you're an asshole. The fact that you even had a thought that this, was somehow anything other, like the fact that I came to conclusion about what it was, I'm like, you know what? Enough of doing that. And this lady and her friend were crying because they had received so much, and she didn't even understand English, which is why she was not laughing at the jokes, by the way, which is why she did not have, it was not seeming to engage, but she had flown all the way from the Netherlands to be there, speaking only Dutch, to be in this class because she wanted it so much. And that was one of those, I've had many moments, but that was just one of those that made me so realize it's like the thing that we think is going on for people, until we ask them a question, we have no clue. And we gotta stop coming to this judgment that we do about what's going on for people without getting to know what's going on for people.
So would you say that also refers to ourselves? Like when we judge ourselves and we say those pedestals, those conclusions we come to as ourselves, I didn't do this, therefore I'm a failure. I woke up 10 minutes late, I'm a late person, I'm always that person. Would it work the same, asking those questions? And
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
And the thing is, for most, we have to realize one of the things that most people aren't aware of or nobody talks about or whatever, we've found that there tend to be two sorts of people in the world. We call them cow people and horse people. And the cow people are the ones that sort of do the same thing all the time. And it's like cows and horses, they live in the same pasture. They eat the same food. But cows are like, okay, I'm going to chew my cud today and maybe eat some grass and wait to be turned into hamburger, And then the horses are like, dude, I want to run. I want to jump over that. Oh my God, I'm going to run. I'm going to jump. I'm going to play. I'm going to run around. I'm going to have sex. I'm going to run. I'm going to jump. I'm going to play. I'm going to have sex. Oh my God, I wonder how many times I can do that, right? And so what we found is there seemed to be two different species almost on the planet. And I don't say that to create separation. I say it to create awareness, where there are some people that are just not interested in change. And there are some people that are so interested in change. But here's the funny part. The people that are not interested in change never judge themselves as wrong. They always judge everybody else because they just know they're right. And then the people that are truly interested in change and the people that actually desire a different world, they think they're judgmental, but the only person they really ever judge is them for not doing it, for not being it, for not being enough, for not getting enough. The other people, and let's say if we call them cow people and horse people, or if we call them like, I don't know, maybe like change averse and change available proponents of change. Basically, we call them human and humanoid. Okay? Cow people are the humans. The humanoids are the weirdos that desire to change everything. And if they do it, and the thing about the humanoids is they're the ones who see different possibilities, desire different possibilities. They're the ones listening to the podcast right now. And the reason I bring that up is, once again, not to make anybody wrong, but most humanoids judge themselves and think they're judgmental. And then what happens is they get judged by somebody who truly is judgmental, and then they think they're wrong because of that. And the other thing is the humanoids make themselves wrong because they are trying to change people that are not desiring change. And then they go, but why won't they read my books? Why won't they change like this? Because they're just a different species. And now I'm not going to say literally a different species, but it's a great way to put it in people's worlds. So they get out of the wrongness of them for not being able to have everybody on the same boat of desiring to change things. It's like we have a lot of people who are like, global warming doesn't exist. I'm like, what do you call an average increase of global temperature of 2.4 degrees Celsius? I call that global warming. I don't know about you, okay? But it's like, that's the thing is, there'll be people like that we don't understand, and what we do is we judge ourselves in relationship to it somehow, as though the fact that this president doesn't believe in it or this world leader doesn't believe in it, and we take it personally. What if you just realize, oh, they're just different? Cool. What change can I create? What can I choose that will truly, and what can I be that will contribute to the world I would like to see? And if we got that and we realize we're different, if we recognize that we're fundamentally different in how we look at the world, and that's not wrong. Because that's the other thing is in somewhere in our history, we got that if we see somebody else as different, then we're somehow being wrong. No, we're all different, but at the same time, we all have greatnesses that we can contribute to each other. And the fact that somebody doesn't get that global warming is occurring and they want to fight it and not believe it because that matches their worldview, well, they're not wrong either. They just don't get what you get. Okay, so what if you're not wrong because they don't get what they get? What if they're not wrong because they don't get what they get? But what can you be, not having to buy their point of view now, what can you be that will change the world for all of us? You know? And the way we do it is by acknowledging us, not as, oh, I'm so much better than other people, but wow, I'm not nearly as effed up as I thought I was. You know? Like, really, what if this thing that you are here where you are more sensitive than most people, because that's the other thing about the humanoids of the world, they're more sensitive than quote unquote normal people walking around. You know, they're around a group of angry people and their meter is up at 100 and somebody else is down at 5, and the person whose meter is down at 5 doesn't pick up on it, and they're like, why are you so sensitive? I wish I didn't have to be, but I am. So how about we cut me a little slack for being so sensitive? But that sensitivity actually lies in their awareness and the fact that they don't have the barriers between them and other people. But somebody like that is truly empathic. Somebody like that has a sense of other people around them. Somebody like that is going to look for, how can we make things greater for everybody? Because I can feel everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas the other ones are at a point where they're not aware of it, but they're more just doing their thing, and that's all they know.
Yeah.
Whereas the others have a heightened, I guess, intuition where they're feeling that they're knowing of that energy to then do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is amazing, by the way. It's getting so deep.
Cool.
So, what is success to you?
Personally or?
Yeah.
For me personally, truly enjoying being alive. But the other part that goes with that for me, it's like I can't decouple that from what I do in the world, because the other part of that for me is and the biggest part, one of the biggest parts of that for me is seeing people truly transform, if you will, which is really funny when I say transform, because it's actually transform into who they really are. So it's not become something they're not, but actually transform into that sense of truly having possibilities in their lives. And for me, it's like, and I know for some people when I say that, you know, I'm always so aware, you know, like I've got a really heightened bullshit meter, you know, and I've done so many things where people would say, yes, I care so much about other people, and they didn't give a crap about anybody. They just wanted your money. They wanted you to do their stuff and show how cool they were. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when I say it, I know that so many people have dealt with things like that even saying it for some people, they're like, blah, blah, blah. So I say it with that full acknowledgement. But for me, really, it's like we live on this planet together. What happens to one of us happens to all of us. And to the degree that I can contribute to other people in having more of them and getting to be what they really are, and just to the degree that they enjoy waking up in the morning, you know, and have a sense that they're not messed up, they're not wrong, they're not broken, they're really pretty friggin' cool, and they move forward and create their lives. It's a friggin' amazing gift.
And it can come from just some simple questions.
Totally. It doesn't have to be as huge as we think.
Does it need a big seminar? And
doesn't need a big seminar.
I was going to mention some things, but it goes into specific people's events. But anyway. So what is the worst thing that has ever happened to you, and how is that the best thing that has ever happened to you?
That's funny with my perspective now. I'm like, worst? Because, well, so I would say really it was that place I got to where I'd given up so much hope. I didn't want to be here anymore. And, you know, and to say it happened to me is, you know, I realize that it truly was the best thing that happened. because it got me here. But really to be in that place of trying so many things, because I knew there had to be a different possibility available. I knew it. I knew it in my friggin' bones. And to get to the place where it wasn't happening, and I tried all the stuff that was shown to me. Like if I went to a seminar and they said, do this, I would do it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, I'm here, change me. It was like, what can I do? I know something else is possible. And none of it friggin' worked. And so getting to that place where I had truly given up hope was, at that time, the worst thing in the friggin' world. And I was ready to end my life and get out of here. And then 2 weeks later, I come across Access Consciousness, have my bars run, and I realized had I not been where I was, I probably wouldn't have done what I did, and I would either be skipping along the bottom at this point or dead. So it's amazing to me how, and I love the question that you phrased, because I see that so many times. People think this is the worst thing, and if they get through it, 99% of the time it's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see that like it brings so much. When you look back on those things, there's so many lessons in that. Yours was that state, that being of, I got to my low point, but then it allowed me to see this opportunity. Whereas if you were still doing, chiropractic or the cow in the paddock eating the grass, that would have been the same thing for the next couple of years. And is that right or wrong? No, it's just what it is. But you were able to see that in that moment and take action on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bars tapping, is it bars? Yes.
It's bars, yeah.
Yeah. Is that something to do with Reiki or?
No, but we get that question a lot.
Okay.
Think Reiki on steroids from a different universe that's never existed on planet Earth.
Yeah, from alien hands.
From alien hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do this one day.
Oh, it's awesome. And it's actually not a tapping. It's just a really light touch on the head. Somebody just puts their hands on your head. And the thing is, the bars have all these different names. Yeah. And so what gets cleared with each bar that you run is whatever the name is. Like we have a bar for body, one for healing, one for money, and control, creativity, and all of your considerations about whatever that thing is start to go away. And that's where we get to that place where if you don't have a point of view, for example, if you didn't have a point of view about how money could show up, what else would be possible?
You'd only be focusing on the one way or the limitations.
Yeah, and that's what most people focus on is the limitation or the one way, and they really focus on the limitation as though that's going to help them change it. But it's really funny, if you focus on a pile of poo, it doesn't often change. It just sits there and taunts you, So it's the same thing with the limitations. Rather than focusing on limitations, what this does is it starts to break that that energetic construct, if you will. And so we found that it changes brainwaves. But also, with one bar session, there's an average of 85% reduction in stress, anxiety, and depression.
Whoa.
Yeah, really. That's why I say people try to compare it to Reiki, and don't get me wrong, I think Reiki is wonderful. This operates on a whole different level.
Yeah, I love that. So something you mentioned before about how people were being in their states, and now this could go back to the cows and the horses as well. And it was Mental Health Week in Australia, or maybe worldwide, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
For people that are in that state where they're at a low point, and as we're saying, then their perspective on the world is not optimistic. They're very, I guess, they could be in a depressed state, similar to where you were in terms of they don't like who they are, they don't want to be here. What I've found in my stuff is that I'm finding that if we're going back to that analogy, there are a lot of the people that are the cows that aren't willing to reach out. How do we then access those people? You were saying, leave the species, do your thing. How do you then provide to those people to, I guess, even get them to ask those questions? That's what I'm finding, I guess, difficult in awakening those cows.
Actually, those are the horses who are trying to be cows.
Okay. So the people that want to do stuff, want to grow, want to jump, and all that sort of stuff that are confining into trying to be that.
And they're trying to be normal, average, real, and the same as everyone else.
Mm.
And that's part of the reason I have the cow and the horse conversation. Even with people who haven't heard that conversation, even though some people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, yes, I am, but I'm happier than most people, so shut up. I don't really say it that way. That was entertaining to me. But in actuality, see, so the thing is, the cow people aren't going to come and do something that's anything about personal development. They don't need it. Their point of view is, I'm right. Why do you do all this weird stuff? And why don't you be happy just sitting on the couch, drinking beer and watching footy? I don't get you, friggin' weirdo. Those are the cow people, okay? The horse people that are trying to be cow people, they're some seriously, people with some serious potential. And I almost hate to say that, because when people say you have potential, it's kind of like, oh, well, you should be using it. And I don't mean it that way. What I mean is they've got some amazing capacities to choose something different, but they're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. So they're fundamentally ignoring or denying their very being. And so to the extent so if you're asking how do we reach those people, you need to speak to them on a level that acknowledges that, and acknowledges that they have awareness and capacities that are different, and they're trying to fit into a box. What about if you didn't have to fit into the box anymore? Like, what box are you trying to fit into that's not even yours? But fundamentally, here's the other thing that may sound like another woo-woo, but fundamentally, you have to be willing to be the energy that speaks to them from a reality beyond this reality. This reality is not working for them. And this reality, I know we're doing a podcast, but we also have some video, but this reality is kind of like this, okay? We have this reality. In this reality lives right and wrong, good and bad, judgment, separation, exclusion, war, poverty, unhappiness. You get the idea, okay? And people go, yeah, but I'm happy sometimes. I'm like, I know. That's when you're functioning beyond this reality, which is what consciousness allows, because consciousness truly includes every molecule in the universe.
It doesn't exclude those things. It's everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Doesn't exclude those things. Doesn't make them wrong. It's like, oh, you need to choose to be sad today? Okay, cool. No problem. You need to choose this? Okay, cool. But what happens is consciousness actually starts to create a reality of possibilities where there's space and where there's a sense of possibility beyond the contraction. And so the horse people that have an awareness that this is possible, that are denying that awareness and trying to do it this reality's way, start to get depressed, unhappy, start to have a lot of stress. They start to also have a lot of anger, because one thing about anger that most people don't realize is the one time it's appropriate to get angry is when there's a lie involved in something. Now, otherwise, anger is pretty much a distractor. It's a distraction. Way beyond the topic, way beyond our ability to talk about today, but we could do an entire podcast on just anger and undoing it. Oh, and also fear and undoing that, because that's not real either. But it's not what other people say it is. They go, it's false evidence appearing real. I'm like, yeah, if that helped you, that would be wonderful. But knowing that, are you any less fearful right now? And they're like, no, I just know I shouldn't be. I know, exactly. In my entire metaphysical experience before Access was that. I know I shouldn't be, but I am. So what we do in Access is we don't talk to you about it unless we can help you change it, because we need to start getting real practical here, And so the thing about the one time it's appropriate to get angry is when there's a lie involved. What that means is anytime you're angry, one of the things you can do is go, what's the lie, spoken or unspoken? And so for these people, one of the other things, it's a very deep rabbit. I mean, we could talk for days.
So this lie is either by ourselves or from someone else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you have a conversation with somebody and you leave it fuming, you've never had that.
No, never.
Yeah, I know, me neither. Oh no, never had that. What you want to do is you want to ask, what was the lie, spoken or unspoken? And it's either something they said or didn't say, or something you said or didn't say, or something they were that you didn't acknowledge, or something you weren't willing to be in their presence. Because if you're around somebody and they're sort of like, all brusque and whatever, and you make yourself less, you'll leave feeling angry that you didn't stand up for yourself, for example. Okay, so that's the idea about the lie. So a lot of the horse people that we're talking about, a lot of the humanoids that we're talking about, which once again, the humanoids are the only ones that are going to listen to this. And hi, humanoids. Nice to talk to you. Yes, I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. I'm really bad. Feel free to cut me off or edit any of me out. Anything you need to. But what happens is a lot of them actually are angry with what they're creating that they feel like they can't change. But anger is not appropriate, right? And humanoids know what's right and what's wrong from a space of judgment. They've learned their entire life not to be what's wrong and to be willing to be only what's right. Mm-hmm. The humans don't have that point of view. The human point of view is whatever I do is right and you need to deal with it. Okay, so the humanoids are the ones. And they've judged that their anger about their situation is wrong, but they can't be angry. So what's the antidote to anger is sadness, depression, and stress. Mm-hmm. And so what's really going on is, and then the other thing, which I guess we're giving our little anger primer right now. The other thing is the energy that most people think is anger is actually potency, the power to create change. So here you have a person who, if they were really choosing for themselves and what they're capable of, would be able to change the situation that's not working. But they don't have the tools, and they don't know that they can, and they don't know that they should. So they have the power to do it, but they won't. So they suppress the power. Because they're suppressing the power, it's a lie that they can't change it now. They could, they just don't know how. They've got the energy, they just don't know how to use it. So because they don't know how to use it, and it gets really frustrating to have that energy there saying change, 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 but they can't change, they then cover it up and act like they can't change it now. But that's also way more socially acceptable to act like you can't change things, right? Because people commiserate with you. Because if you could change everything, people would be like, oh, you're arrogant. You think you could change everything, right? So it's very socially acceptable to pretend that you can't change it. But now that you've made that, now what you're doing is you're covering up the idea that you can change it. So now it's a lie. So now you get angry with yourself, but you're not allowed to be angry because anger is bad and wrong, and your mom told you so, and your dad told you so, and your friends told you so, and your ex-girlfriend told you so when you got angry that one time when she did that thing that pissed you off. So instead of that, now you cover it up with sadness, because sadness is an energy that negates anger, which was actually potency and power, but sadness is socially acceptable. Mm-hmm. Anger is not. So what we're dealing with, and this is, I realize is a very deep rabbit hole. If people are still following, thank you out there. You have a tenacity that's amazing. So what happens is now, in order for that person to get unlocked, they've got to get to the source of what created, what the initial lie is in the first place, but they've got to get over the lie of sadness, realize they're using the sadness as a tool to cover up the anger. The anger is actually potency and power to create change. It's not actually even anger from that I want to kill you state, that. It's actually a generative energy underneath it all. And if you can get them to that place where they made that choice, to buy that point of view, the whole thing unlocks. And then they not only come out of their sadness, their anger, their lack of creation, now they start creating and changing their lives.
Whoa.
Whew. I love it. You called it the Consciousness Podcast, all right?
I did, and it's going down the conscious rabbit holes. I love it. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Never give up, never give in, and never quit.
Who gave you that advice?
My friend Gary Douglas. And got to tell you, it's interesting because he's 28 years older than I am. He's the founder of Access Consciousness. He had been doing it for 10 years before I came along. And to see this man that founded this thing that has now become a worldwide movement and have him be so present and potent and humble and contributory all at the same time, it's like, you know what? That is a role model of magnitude for me. Really, it's been an honor to work with him for the past 20 years and have him as my best friend and business partner and co-creator.
Mm-hmm. And great advice as well.
True, yeah.
What advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Have more fun and stop buying other people's realities. And what can you do to make money that nobody else can? Now, why do I say that? Because for me, it's interesting because what I've learned about my life is it's not about the money. I love money. I'm willing to have it, but I don't do anything I do for the money. And what's strange is then more money shows up, you know? But had I been a kid and looked at having fun and actually creating what I could have created, I look at the next, 20 years or so, and had I not followed through on the ideas that I had when I was a kid, there would have been so many things that would have showed up with more ease. Now, I say that now because you asked me to talk to my 16-year-old self, right? You know, the thing that came up.
The hindsight, foresight. Yeah.
Exactly. Hindsight, foresight for your hindsight. But I realize now it's like, dude, I was exactly where I needed to be the whole time.
Yeah.
And that, I wonder if people could start to just begin to get that. Because it's paradigm busting. What if you were and are exactly where you needed to be the whole time? You know, what if you couldn't make the choices that would have done something different before just because? And what if it's not wrong?
Mm-hmm. You give the power back to them and know that you are exactly. It's that assurance of, and it's one of my affirmations and something that I teach the people in my courses and mentor groups is I'm exactly where I need to be.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're thinking you're supposed to be somewhere else, that's an illusion of whole other worries and stresses that are going to come in. It's not even there. You're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Focus on that.
Exactly. And that's another thing people do is, I'm here, but I'm not going to be very present. I'm going to be focusing on this other thing that makes me stress out. Just take a moment. Be here. Yeah.
And you wonder, like, people wonder why they're in that cycle, and it's like it shows that's it's so obvious, but yet stepping out of it is, you know, gaining that, asking those questions, gaining that awareness and consciousness from that. How can people become more fulfilled in life?
Choose. I know it sounds deceptively simple, but really, see, if we could recognize that we have created the lives we have created on purpose because it worked for us in some way. Like,
but what if someone's in a situation they don't like and they're saying, I would never have created this. Why would I have created this life of struggle and stress and sadness?
Well, I beg to differ. See, that's the thing is, we create things that work for us, whether it cognitively appears so right now or not. And what we have to realize is we do things based on an energy or a point of view or something, and it isn't always from the present that we choose. In fact, it's very seldom from the present that we choose. If we chose from the present more, we'd make different choices. So, for example, one of the things in working with a lady who had cancer, my friend Gary is working with her, and he said, okay, so what are you dying to get out of? Why? Because cancer is basically a death sentence in the world we live in right now. I mean, it doesn't have to be. We realize there's all kinds of other possibilities. But if you're going to get the person to the possibilities, you need to get them to the point of view that created it in the first place. And by the way, we never claim to heal cancer or anything, okay? I just want to really be clear on that because people hear that and they're like, he said he healed cancer. No, I didn't. Nope. I will just ask people questions, and if they get to a place where they can heal it, awesome. Yeah. Good for them, okay? Because we're the only ones who can create change in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. But so he's working with this lady, and he said, so what are you dying to get out of? Because that's a question that showed up. And she's like, nothing, I want to live. And he went through that question about 20 different times, and he added the clearing statement that we have. And by the way, go to theclearingstatement.com and get that friggin' thing and just use it, okay? It's free. It's like my gift to you, but it's a way of changing stuff that nothing else changes by going to the point of wherever it started and undoing it. Very simple to use. Just go there and get it, please. So he did this thing, and after about 20 layers, he said, okay, so what are you dying to get out of? And she went, oh my God, my relationship. Oh, okay. Now, if we look at this for a moment, see, because there's consciousness light, where all we have is nice conversations, and where we talk about what's wonderful and possible, and we deal with some of the anger and the stuff like that. And then there's the consciousness that includes everything and judges nothing, even including somebody's choice for that. And you look at the depth of that and you realize how dynamically somebody wants to create a choice to get out of something they've decided they can't get out of, and this thing became a solution. And what if we didn't have to judge that as right or wrong? What if we were like, wow, amazing, you could make that choice and make your body go down that road. How much power do you have, right? But then if you can, depending on the person, like some people would be like, okay, well, I didn't realize I was doing that. Okay, let's change it. Some people might be like, yep. And, and Gary said to her, he's like, did you ever consider getting a divorce? And she's like, oh my God, I could never do that to my children. And he's like, how old are your children? The youngest one was 52. But this was her point of view, right? Mm-hmm. This is why I say your point of view creates your reality. And the point of view you won't change creates a reality you can't change. A point of view you're willing to change creates any reality as changeable. And so in this case, so when we talk about that, the reason I bring up that example is because we create these things for a reason. You have to really sometimes expand your head, twist your head, get rid of your mind in order to get there. But it comes from asking people questions based on what presents itself. And then you get all these awarenesses that they have that they don't even know they have because nobody's ever asked them the question. Which is why I say it's so vital that we actually ask questions of people and of ourselves, because a question always opens up another doorway of possibility. So realizing this lady created it, that was an amazing awareness, because it was like, oh, this is what she's doing. And then in working with other people, we're like, oh, this is what they're doing. Okay, there's actually a reason behind it. Mm-hmm. And this is where you really got to be interesting point of view about everything. And one of the tools of access is interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, they have this point of view. Interesting point of view, she's creating this. Interesting point of view, this is going on. Because unless we're interesting point of view about it, we get to, oh, it's wrong to have cancer, or it's wrong to die, or it's wrong. Well, okay, but where does that leave us with her having a choice to be able to choose, mm-hmm. or to be able to choose to change it? If we make their choice wrong, they will always fight against it. If we make our own choice wrong, we'll fight against it. If somebody else makes our choice wrong, we fight against it. So if we're truly functioning from consciousness, we've got to function from a different paradigm, which is why I say consciousness is where everything and everyone exists, and no one and nothing is judged. And when you have that, you can be in the presence of somebody with cancer and see what you might be able to contribute to them that will allow them to truly have choice. Different world.
I love that so much. Do you need to press that again? No, that's all good. So kind of the final question is, what impact do you want to have on the community and the world?
Well, I'm going to steal that one also from my friend Gary, because I think he said it brilliantly, which is, what I would like to have is, actually, I'm not stealing it from him. Let me give you mine, which they're somewhat similar. And I still haven't said it yet, which leaves you with nothing yet. Okay. Maybe we can just cut that part out. That was just total fucking dribble.
Staying.
Cut out the dribble. For me, the impact I would like to have is, I would like to actually create a world where everybody has access to consciousness and the tools of consciousness, and nobody knows my name. And where everybody actually has this ability to know that a world of inclusion and true possibilities, like true possibilities beyond anything we think is possible right now, actually can exist, and that we together can create it.
Amazing. How can people find you and more about what you do and access consciousness?
DrDainHeer.com, which is DrDainheer.com. Also on YouTube, I've got, I don't know, 350 videos or something at this point that are free gifts to people.
Good.
Thank you very much.
The 5 minutes I watched.
The 5 minutes you watched, yeah, out of that's awesome. And also you can go to, if you want to get your bars run and find somebody to do that, you go to bars.accessconsciousness.com. And the main Access website is accessconsciousness.com. And my website may be a little easier to navigate than the main Access website because we got a lot going on.
But it sounds like all great tools and information. I want to acknowledge you for being the human that you are, that you want to give so much back to people. Even like giving your time here to sit with me is, I'm so honored and so grateful that we've shared this conversation, but also all the stuff that you do, like your schedule you were saying before is just crazy. But when you do what you love and you love what you do, and I can see that passion in you, it gives to other people. It gives to yourself, but then also flows onto other people, and for sharing so much tools and wisdom and just some simple tips as well. We did go deep on a lot, but like the simple things as well to allow the audience to gain so much in their life. And yeah, thank you so much for all of that.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you. And I also have to say thank you to you because, I mean, you drove 7 hours down here, and I hope you're having a weekend in Melbourne after this. But but really, that level of dedication is just friggin' awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, I'm doing what I love, and this is what lights me up, and I'm able to then share that with others and to share it with someone like yourself and have such a conscious conversation. And it would be worth 14 hours, but lucky it's only 7.
Half the distance.
Amazing.
Awesome.
All right, guys, if you've loved this, make sure you reach out, you screenshot, you subscribe on YouTube and on all the podcast apps. And until next time, take care. Peace.
Peace.